In a small provincial estate in the middle of nowhere, a child was born. The gods bestowed a blessing on the parents. It turned out to be a boy. They named the child Ruin Ardal. Everyone really hopes that he will become a light for this world, but since childhood, the child has not stood out in any way. Ruin's father, Alex, talks to a man. The boy asks him not to go outside today near the South Mountain, as there was a strange flow of mana there. The men don't quite understand the boy's words, but Potter Baggins decides to listen to them. Late in the evening, in the pouring rain, Potter runs back to the estate. Alex happily greets him. Baggins apologizes to his master, explaining that he took the longer route, and Ardal Sr. asks if anything happened. Potter says he managed to avoid trouble yesterday because he listened to the young master's advice and did not go through the street near South Mountain. Now the servant learned that there had been an attack by beastmen, and everyone who was there was in danger. Baggins asks the owner if he thinks Ruin is able to sense the mana in the air. Alex replies that he finds it difficult to answer this question yet. From that day on, Ruin increasingly showed a talent for magic. At 6 years old, he could sense mana, and at 7, he could already manifest it. At 10 years old, the boy surpassed countless children from prestigious families who entered the Ignite Magic Academy, the best academy in the kingdom. Ardal was admitted to the academy as the best applicant and received the title of genius. This attitude somewhat weighed on the young hero, but he reassured himself with the thought that his name would raise the status of the family, although it cannot be said that he succeeded in this. Sir in a black cloak asked Ruin to demonstrate to everyone the skills of the best among the applicants. That day it became clear that he was far from the best and not even the second. He lacked the innate ability to release magic even a meter away from his body. For a mage, his body was literally the worst. It didn't take long for others to learn of his humble origins and lack of talent for magic. So, the Academy's attitude towards Ruin quickly changed. His classmates would touch him in the corridors and then laugh, saying that after touching such a disabled person, they could accidentally become like him themselves. The stigma of a defective person, incapable of performing magic even in a magic academy, hung over him. For those who were envious, his current status was the greatest pleasure they could ever receive. One boy thought that the impudent man, who was unable to use magic, couldn't even look at him, so he beat up Ruin. Ardal was always alone. He began to doubt that he could ever become a magician. A person who entered the academy with the best grades, more promising than anyone else, more diligent than anyone else, becomes disabled from a genius because of a curse. This is how it could have all ended for the boy. But Ruin could not even imagine that in the depths of despair, there would be room for a miracle. The status window is unlocked, the player's artifact is activated, Ruin is floating in open space. The guy comes to his senses, doesn't understand where he is, thinks that it's just a dream, but immediately realizes that he's wrong. The system reports that he is the incarnation of Drak, the destroyer of the world. Ardal is shocked. He is in the hands of a huge man with red eyes who wants to tell him something. A few hours earlier, Ruin is at the Ignite Academy training grounds. The professor explains the task. The guy only needs to create a fireball and hit the scarecrow with it. Heidel understands that this is the simplest task that any student at the academy should be able to handle with ease. But for Ruin, for someone who is unable to use magic, this is an almost impossible task. Ardal decides not to give up and try to complete this task. He hopes that this time he will succeed. He creates such a huge ball that all the other students can't believe their eyes. Ruin tries to continue, but then what was expected happens. The ball does not come off his hand. The guy explains to the teacher that he cannot do this. Heidel asks Ruin to release the ball quickly, but the guy can't do it. His fireball doesn't leave his hand. The professor tells the boy that he is already in his senior year, and if he is still unable to perform regular magic, then he simply will not pass the final exam. The guy understands that he is destined to fail. He asks for forgiveness, closes the fireball, and promises to train more. In the practical shooting test, students must create 10 fireballs and hit the target multiple times. Ruin, who is unable to charge even one ball into the target, cannot count on even a third-rate magician. The students again begin to discuss that this misunderstanding has no place in the academy at all. They think that it is time for the main idiot of the academy to give up. Ardal understands that because the best applicant was the offspring of a nobleman from the province, his peers from more prestigious families began to envy him, and this was the reason for the hostile attitude. Ruin can withstand their mockery, but the reality that deprives him of hope begins to destroy him from within. This curse is the only thing that has held him back for the past 6 years. And although he has held up well all this time, the boy is now beginning to wonder how much longer he can hold out. Ardal meets his classmates in the academy corridor, and they start bullying him again. They suggest that the guy go back to his province because of him, the graduating class is not a role model. One of them believes that since nature has deprived him of skills, he should at least be rich, and immediately begins to laugh at Ardel's situation. The second one starts to humiliate Ruin's family, saying that they are all idiots who have nothing but behave arrogantly. The main character tries to leave but cannot stand it and punches the offender in the face with all his might. Everyone is shocked. Ruin says that no one has the right to insult his family. At this moment, the second offender tries to pounce on the guy. Ardel meets him with a powerful blow that knocks the wind out of the attacker. The first offender stands up, raises a magic ball above himself. Ruin is shocked, because within the walls of the academy, the use of combat magic is strictly prohibited. The guy throws this ball at Ardel, saying that he is trash with a disorder in releasing magic, and it is time for him to die. Hadel appears, demanding that everyone stop, but it is too late. Ardel feels nothing and thinks that his end has come. That's how he ended up in that very space in front of the red-eyed giant. Ruin doesn't understand at all what's happening. He hears someone say his name and then wakes up on an unfamiliar bed, with Helen, a high-class healer, standing over him, explaining to the boy that he is in the restroom. Ruin tries to comprehend everything that happened. Helen asks him not to get up, but the guy decides to sit down. He can't understand what happened to him a couple of minutes ago. The vision seemed so real. Ardel asks the healer how long he was out. She says, almost a day. She's very happy that nothing worse happened. The guy asks if he's okay. The woman says they need to run some more tests, but Ruin looks pretty good for someone who took a direct hit from a lightning ball. Helen also reports that there are no wounds or burns on the guy's body, and even his organs are intact. She has never encountered anything like this, and this is generally impossible in principle. Ruin is in shock. He took a direct hit from a lightning ball. It is a terrible magic that burns the body in seconds. A professor enters the room. Helen goes to analyze the test results and asks the guy to call her if something bothers him. The first thing Heidel does is ask about the patient's well-being, and upon receiving an answer, he tells them that a professorial council has been assembled to discuss the matter. The professor also announces that Ben Folt will be expelled for using combat magic, spreading false rumors, and unfair treatment of a classmate. Ruin is very upset because he also hit Ben. Heidel says that he will also be punished. Given the circumstances, the guy will have to do volunteer service for a month. The professor's last question stumps Ardel, asking if the boy has an artifact, a legendary weapon left by ancient magicians with unlimited mana. The guy claims that he doesn't have the artifact. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bullied him like that. The professor agrees with the student, because if their family had it, they would have used it for their people a long time ago. Ruin asks why the teacher is interested in this. He explains that before the guy was hit by a ball of lightning, his body was surrounded by a red light, as if the artifact protected the guy, reflecting Ben's magic. The guy falls into his memories again. Now he is sure that his vision is connected with this red light. He tells Heidel that he is sure that he does not possess any artifact and does not understand at all what happened. The professor leaves without asking anything else, and Ruin tries to understand what is happening to him. He remembers what he heard when he was in the hands of that red-eyed giant. The artifact immediately comes to mind, Draca, the destroyer of worlds. The guy remembers something else, and the phrase status window comes out of his lips. At that moment, a blue screen appears in front of him. Ruin is in shock. He swears loudly. Helen, who is nearby, tries to calm him down. He points to the screen and asks if the healer sees him too. The girl doesn't understand what he's talking about because there's nothing here. He asks again if he's sure everything's okay. Ruin understands that only he can see the screen. The status window says that as a result of the desire for unlimited power, the magician Draca died with his world. For him, deprived of the ability to release mana from birth, the source of power was physical strength. As a result, Ruin became a player who possesses the artifact Draca. Now he can infinitely increase his strength through tasks. The guy tells the healer that he must have imagined it. Helen takes it as a joke. She says that his tests are normal, so he can return to the dorm. So today, Ardel survived a lightning strike without any consequences, met a red-eyed man in an alternate dimension, and learned that he is now the incarnation of Drac. The guy doesn't believe that the artifact was given to him. Then a window appears in front of him again, offering a repeating task. The screen says that since Ruin has become a player associated with Drac, he needs to prepare his body for increased strength through training. To complete the task, he needs to perform 300 different attacks, for which he will increase his strength by 10 units. The guy doubts that punches and kicks have anything to do with physical strength, but he understands that now is not the time to think and starts training. After throwing a few punches, he notices that his counter doesn't always count the technique. Ruin understands that he needs to do everything technically and continues training enthusiastically. After a long time, the guy finishes the workout, gets his reward and notices how something starts circulating in his blood. He understands that this is something more fundamental than mana. Ruin feels that he has become truly stronger. The guy waves his arms, noticing that the air resistance is much less. He is delighted and decides to see what the second award is. A passive skill called Power Circle appears on the status window. It replaces mana with physical force in all manifestations. Ardell does not understand what this means. All who sense and study mana have a circle around their heart. The mana circle plays an important role in releasing and strengthening mana. The number of circles increases depending on the accumulated mana and the amount the magician can control. Ruin has 4 mana circles, which is more than is usually seen in people his age, but due to his disorder, it is as good as 0. The guy starts to have crazy circulating circles of power instead of circles of mana in the area of his heart, and it scares him. Ardell knows nothing about mages without mana circles. If these new circles do not become a full replacement, then the guy can forget about life as a mage. Ruin decides that it is too early for him to give in to the mood of defeat. He needs to check the circles in the case first. The main character summons a fireball into his hand. The magic happens so fast that it seems impossible. The ball has a lot of power. Seeing the size of his fireball, the guy realized that this was the power of the artifact, and he was given a unique chance. Since magic has a basic triggering principle, it takes an average of 10 seconds to release, but being able to skip this step and create a fireball using internal power is definitely the power of the artifact. Here, the status window lights up again in front of Ruin. He is assigned the passive skill of the Madness Magician, which was developed by Drac himself. Now the guy can attack the enemy, filling his body with magic, and physical damage will also be added to his magical attacks. Ardell suspects that Draca suffered from a similar disorder to himself and fought by infusing magic into his fists and feet. The thoughts are interrupted by a new task. The guy needs to demonstrate a new method. To do this, use a power circle and physical force to hit the target. Ruin understands that this method gives him a chance to become a real magician, and without hesitation, he begins the task. He very quickly completes the goal, and very happy and tired, he lies down on the ground. For the task, he gets +10 to his strength. The guy starts thinking about Drac. His personality interests Ruin very much, and unexpectedly for himself, he falls asleep. In the morning, his classmates find him, and they are shocked to see Ruin sleeping right on the training ground. Someone suggests that the guy might be dead, but they immediately answer that even a lightning strike didn't kill Ardell, at which point the guy comes to his senses, frightening his classmates with his unexpected awakening. Ruin calmly gets up and doesn't understand why everyone is so surprised. Have they really never seen a person sleeping on the street? Someone asks if the guy drank last night. Ardell sends everyone away and leaves. His classmates notice that some changes have occurred in the guy. Here they notice that only scraps are left of the scarecrow. No one wants to believe that Ruin did this. The guy returns to his dorm room, where he finds his roommate Jason Damon, who has just woken up. Jason is very surprised that Ruin left the academy. He asks if something happened, but the guy indifferently says that it does not concern him. Damon asks if Ruin was with a girl, which makes the protagonist angry. Jason himself often secretly leaves the academy, as he is obsessed with alcohol and girls. The neighbor asks to tell in detail what the guy did last night. He is glad that Ruin finally pulled himself together, but Ardell is not interested in such conversations. He throws a towel at Jason and goes to the bathroom. Ruin's body is very tired, and he is glad that he can finally relax. Sinking into the bath, he immediately remembers that there was some secret mission and decides to check what is there. The status window shows a task that the guy has already completed. He needs to perform various hits again, only now the number of repetitions has increased, and the reward remains the same. The guy is not very happy with this arrangement, as expected. It will not be easy, but he is ready to do anything to become a magician. A month has passed since then. The repetitive task can be done once a day, but the required number of repetitions has increased day by day. If a task is not completed within a day, all progress is reset, so Ruin never missed a day of training. The only good thing is that the repetitions don't go above 3,000, because otherwise Ardell might die in the process. Over the past month, the guy has been doing these workouts every day, improving his strength and even being able to acquire a new skill. The skill is called Body Art. It increases abilities, and depending on the level of training, more powerful and skillful movements become available. In class, everyone notices that Ruin has been behaving extremely strangely lately. He sleeps during lessons, although before he never took his eyes off the board. Also, everyone noticed that he actually moved to the training ground and is practicing some punches there. Everyone thinks that the guy is trying to somehow compensate for his frustration. Over the past month, Ardell has been running quests and searching for any clues about Drac's identity. but he has been unable to find any mages by that name in historical records. He also found no data on the status window, the World Destroyer, the player, or the quests, and he couldn't even begin to understand the nature of any of it. Ruin's strength is already 470, agility 100, and wisdom 1550, but he still doesn't understand who the person is who gave him all this. The guy is standing in the library. Jason suddenly runs up to him and asks if he heard about what happened, but Ruin does not understand what they are talking about. The protagonist is worried that something terrible has happened, but Damon reports that the head of the Ardell family, Ruin's father, has arrived at the academy. The guy immediately jumps up and runs to Alex. Both are very happy to see each other. After some time, the Ardells are sitting in a cafe. Ruin asks how the family has been doing all these 6 years that he has been here at the academy. Alex replies that everything was fine, as usual. Ruin asks how her younger sister is doing, and her father tells her that Ruin has become quite an adult and is now studying the art of swordsmanship to protect her weak older brother. Ruina feels awkward about these words, but his father reassures him that Ruina has always been overly confident in herself. The younger Ardell understands the true reason for his father's arrival and immediately tells him that he is doing well. No one is bullying him, either physically or morally. Alex says that he came to find out if Ruin wants to leave the academy. If the guy is having a hard time, the doors of their house are always open. The guy says that from the very beginning he understood why his dad came back 6 years later. He tries to assure his father that he found a way out. He offers his father a deal. He must show a good result on the next practical test, but if he fails, he will do as Alex wants. After listening to his son's promises, Alex realized his determination to go all the way, and after the conversation, he returned to the estate alone. The day of the exam has arrived. The written part on understanding magic begins. Students are warned that any violation will be punished by having their result nullified. After the written part, there will be a practical part, which is divided into 4 more parts: aimed shooting, measuring magical power, real combat, and one-on-one combat. As a magic release disorder user, Ruin had been passing the written portion perfectly throughout his entire training period, and in the practical portion, Mikkel from the prestigious Garachil family always took first place. However, this year, Ardell is confident that everything will be different, because he will definitely take first place. Once the written part is completed and several days of preparation have passed, it is time for the practical exam itself. Before the start, Jason approaches Ruin and asks if the guy has any action plan for the practical part, because he has been acting very strangely for the last month, and this is suspicious. Ardell says that the neighbor is right, and today he will try a new approach. Damon is very happy for his neighbor. Then Mikkel comes up to them and asks what Ruin is doing here. Is he really going to take part in the exam, since with his disorder it is useless? The guy advises him to just give in instead of going out and humiliating himself. Ruin says that he is unlikely to take such advice, to which Mikkel continues to pester him, assuring him that it is normal for a person with a magic release disorder to fail the exam. Ardell doesn't understand the reasons for this guy's behavior, because he had never talked to him before. This whole conversation makes him angry. Mikkel promises to deal with Ruin in a one-on-one fight and leaves. The first stage begins, in which you need to hit as many targets as possible at once. This exercise helps to reveal the accuracy of the future magician. However, this year the level of difficulty of the exam has been increased. Now the targets are constantly moving, and as a result the average score was simply terrible. Students hit a maximum of 4 targets. Professors are shocked that results will drop so much due to a slight complication. The quality of current graduates leaves much to be desired. Professor Ellick, who is a potion maker and Mikkel's uncle, says that it is too early to be disappointed because it is Garachil's turn, and he is the best at this. Mikkel comes out onto the court and shouts at Ruin to look closely at the huge difference between them. The guy hits a large number of targets with one blow, which delights absolutely everyone. His classmates believe that he will be the first again. Professor Ellick is happy with the result. He immediately begins to praise his nephew to the other judges, saying that Mikkel will definitely be this year's representative at the big festival. Tryon Ignat, the current head of the academy and a 7th-level archmage, asks Ellick not to continue, as they already have enough data to assess the level of the current graduates. Professor Heidel asks Ignat to sit a little longer because Ardell will be speaking next. The head of the academy is not very impressed by this name. He finds it difficult to believe that Ruin still attends the academy at all. Heidel asks in this case to pay tribute to the guy's persistence and watch his performance. Ruin comes out onto the court. He is asked to start. The guy instantly charges his hands with fireballs. His classmates pay attention to the wild speed with which the loser was able to create them. Mikkel turns to the rest of the students and says that with frustration this guy can conjure up 100 balls, but he won't be able to hit a single target. This bastard is not capable of anything. Ardell uses his passive skill, which distorts and refracts time for 30 seconds, and also adds movement speed equal to 200% of physical strength. The guy does the impossible. The whole floor is on fire under him. He used his skills 100%. All the professors and students are shocked. In the end, Ruin was able to hit 27 targets using the magic in his hands and his own strength. His classmates don't understand how Ardell was able to move so quickly. His result is the highest in the history of the academy. Even Professor Ignat gets up from his seat and starts clapping, saying that it was incredible. All the students except Mikkel join in and congratulate the guy on such a success. The universal applause and recognition that Ruin had never received in these 6 years spread warmth in his chest. He always wanted to feel it. Alec is perplexed. He thinks that this technique of Ardell has nothing to do with magic. At least he has never heard of such a thing. Heidel stands up for the honor of the student. He tells all the professors that the distinctive feature of magic is its limitless possibilities, and if everything goes according to expectations, then it is no longer magic, but mathematics. Alec tries to answer, but Ignite bursts into this argument. He says that today he saw a miracle created by the student, a flawless magical miracle. Unfortunately, other professors have a different point of view. For Uncle Mikkel, everything went to hell. He couldn't even imagine that everything would turn out like this. The next day, everyone pays special attention to Ruin, calling him an archmage. Everyone wants to know how he did that trick. Until this day, Ardell was an outcast. Everything changed literally overnight. So while the guy has a hard time getting used to the attention, in fact, it would be better for him to remain a loner. Of course, for some people, he is now a thorn in their side, and the main new enemy is Mikkel. Ruin returns to his room, where Garikil is already waiting for him, who wants to warn the arrogant bastard not to show off. But Ardell understands that his interlocutor is unhappy with losing to someone he looked down on for 6 years. Mikkel grabs the guy by the chest, but he removes his hand with an indifferent face. Garikil is shocked. He wonders where Ruin got so much strength from. Ardell says that it is important for both of them to graduate, so if Mikkel wants to crush him so badly, then let him do it in a one-on-one fight as he threatened. Garikil is furious and yells at Ruin, believing that the boy is not worthy of competing with him, since he is the one who failed all 6 years of training. Ruin says that they just need to wait, and then they will find out who is stronger. Mikkel leaves, threatening the guy so that he will never dare to fail before their fight. As he walks down the hallway, Mikkel is still very angry. He is sure that this insolent son of a bitch will fail at today's stage before he even gets to one-on-one fights. There is an ancient ogre, Kingren, standing in the square. Ruin has seen this statue several times, but each time he never ceases to be amazed. 500 years ago, Archmage Freud turned an ogre into an artifact while he was alive. Kingren, locked in the artifact, absorbs the mana of the mages and is a magical punching bag. In the second stage, students are required to direct magic at the ogre and get a high result. Ruin asks Jason if he just needs to aim at the statue and use the spell he's most confident in, and Jason replies that's exactly it. But this ogre is famous for evaluating very harshly. Getting a result above 20 from him is already considered something commendable. The students begin the task laughing at each other. Everyone has very low results. The ogre is simply mocking their magic. Next up is Mikkel. Everyone hopes that at least he will show a good result. The guy directs his ball at the ogre. Kingren is disappointed. He asks the guy about his great father. Garikil is proud of his lineage. He immodestly tells the ogre about himself and his father. Kingren tells the guy that his father was a fool. And Mikkel himself is even worse and gives him 27 points, which is a low result for this guy. He's furious. They're trying to get him off the court as quickly as possible. The next one will show what Ardell is capable of. The guy's a little nervous. Ruin introduces himself to the ogre, but he hears his name for the first time and asks him to quickly show what this stranger can do. The guy's hands are burning with explosive burning mana. This is 4th level magic. Everyone watching is in shock. The ogre sees such a stance in a student for the first time. Ardell begins to step on the statue, then makes a jump, transfers magic from his fist to his leg, and explodes it in an instant. The observing classmates look at what is happening with delight. They believe that a spell of such power should be classified as at least a 5th grade spell. Ruin is pleased with the magic he created. His spell worked as expected. But Kingren's reaction is somehow strange. Ogre asks who this guy is in front of him. Ardell doesn't understand the question because he introduced himself. Kingren says that Ruin is Draka. The guy is shocked. The statue says that it has been waiting for this meeting for a long time. The main character has not been able to find a single mention of Drak over the past 2 months, but this ogre has some information. The guy asks to tell him at least something about Drake. Kingren could not even think that he would meet his incarnation here, at the academy. The ogre asks to name the guy again and promises to remember it. Someone asks to announce Ruin's scores before Kingren decides to leave, but the ogre replies that there are too many ears here, he will tell later. The evaluation is now complete. Kingren says that this guy's magic is not something he can evaluate. He is going to leave. Alec is very unhappy. He demands points because, according to the rules, he is obliged to do this no matter what. This contract must be observed for 5,000 years from the day of the death of the Archmage Freud. Kingren is furious. He believes that the professor does not dare mention the rules in his presence because he has been evaluating children who do not even look like magicians for many years. The ogre understands that the contract is important, so he turns to Ruin and asks how many points he wants, 0 or 100. He can choose himself, the guy is shocked, but of course chooses 100 points. All the students of the academy are in shock. They do not understand how that same loser could be rated at 100 points. Ruin again found himself in the center of attention. Professor Heidel approaches the guy after the test. He reports that the news that Kingren gave the guy 100 points has already reached the head of the academy. Upon learning of this, he stated that this is an unprecedented case and that Ruin deserves a reward. Heidel hands the guy a scroll. It says about the artifact room. Ardal doesn't understand what it means. The professor asks him to follow him. The professor takes the guy to a room that no one has seen before. Heidel explains that this is the only place in the academy where entry is prohibited. Ruin does not understand what he is doing here in this case. They stop in front of the entrance to the artifact room. Heidel informs that he is only allowed to go this far, so Ruin goes on alone, and the professor will wait for him outside. The guy doesn't understand what's going on, but since this is his reward, he decides to see what's inside. There are many items in the room that Ardal has only heard about. He assumes that this is the magical warehouse of the Archmage Freud. The deathly silence is broken by Kingren's voice. He says that the boy is acting lost, as if he doesn't realize his true value. Ruin didn't expect to meet an ogre here. He notices that Kingren is no longer a stone statue. The ogre notices the boy's interest and tells him that this is the only place where he is allowed to appear in his true form. Thanks to the ancient mana that fills this forgiveness, he can be in his body and not in the form of an artifact. Ardal asks what Kingren meant by his value. The ogre replies that the boy does not understand his value at all, despite the fact that he uses the same artifact as Draca, the player. Ruin really wants to know about the player too. The ogre says that this is a rare artifact, the only one of its kind. He asks the guy how he got it and what connects him with Drac. The main character replies that he himself has been asking himself this question for 2 months now. He asks Kingren who this Draca is. The ogre tells that this creature, who wanted to become god, once Draca came to the tribe of the Sky Peak, to which Kingren belonged. He looked unsightly. However, his strength was so monstrous that no one from the tribe could resist it. Moreover, he became stronger day by day, so even several ogres could not defeat him. The ogres respected him. Draca lived with them and was a member of the tribe. He taught Kingren, the next chieftain of the tribe, the language and magic for almost 100 years. Ruin does not understand how it is possible for a human to live so long. Kingren replies that Draca was not human. Draca's true form was the black dragon Dracagonia. Ardal can't believe that dragons once actually existed. Kingren asks in surprise if Ruin really didn't know that magic came from dragons. The guy had, of course, heard about it, but he thought it was all just stories and legends. Ogre explains that Draca himself was unable to use magic, so he created a way to fight like Ruin by infusing his arms and legs with magic. Draca created an ability that only he could use, the ability to turn magic into power, which the boy demonstrated to Kingren. With its help, Draca became the most powerful being in the world. However, he was not satisfied with this and endlessly increased his power until he eventually destroyed everything around him and himself. Ruin finally realized where the name of the Destroyer of Worlds came from. He can't even imagine how strong he was to be able to destroy an entire world. Here a new achievement appears on the status window. Now he has been given the title of Friend of the Ogre. Now the ogres will not show hostility towards him, and he can communicate with them calmly. Ruin also gets an active skill called Ogre's Fury, which allows him to borrow the power of an enraged ogre and gives him a temporary increase in strength, increasing it by 300 units for 30 minutes. The guy suddenly had a blue ball in his hand. The ogre says that apparently Ruin received a reward for the task. Kingren examines the ball and says that it is Stran. Ardal asks if he knows anything about this object. The ogre says that it is not an object, but an incarnation. This orb was always near Drac. Given its current state, Drac must have sealed it in the Spirit Stone when he died. He is the embodiment of power. Although he is called a spirit, he is different from ordinary spirits. Strawn has a nasty character. He asks Drac for infinite power every day. However, if his wish is granted, he will also promise limitless power. Ruin asks if the incarnation will be born from this stone. The ogre confirms and also reassures the guy that there is no need to worry. The ball begins to split. Kingren says that apparently the spirit will soon awaken. A bear appears from the stone. The bear is not happy that he is being insulted like that. Ruin is shocked that he can talk. The bear is furious and screams that no one should call him that again. The creature in Ruin's hands asks how such a bastard dared compare him to that animal. He is not a bear. Ardell asks who he is then. The bear says that he is an incarnation, not bound to form. He can be whatever he wants. The bear is about to demonstrate his strength, but it has disappeared somewhere. He decides that it is all because he was reincarnated with an empty stomach. Strand immediately demands food, and Ruin does not understand why the bear is so rude. The guy says that he has no way to get food. The bear is unhappy that his new owner is so weak that he can't even feed him. Suddenly, the bear decides that he wants to sleep, so he lies down, right in the arms of the guy. He asks to wake him up when it's time to eat. Ruin is shocked. He doesn't understand why this rude bear called him master. Ardell puts his new sleeping friend on his shoulder. The ogre is touched by this picture. He tells the guy that even after thousands of years, the character of the country has not changed. Kingren says that Ruin and the bear remind him of the happy times when he encountered Drac and Strand in his homeland, the Sky Peak tribe. The ogre asks what the young destroyer, who carries the will of Drac within him, is going to do next with the power. What makes him stronger? This power can direct him to the righteous path or eat him alive. The reason Ruin craved power was to protect his people from demons, to elevate the Ardell family name, and to properly assert himself to those who despised him. Therefore, the young destroyer will not refuse this opportunity. He will live of his own free will for the sake of his people, family, and himself. As he leaves, Kingren says that he will look forward to the future and see what Ardell will bring. Even though Ruin had received a lead on Drac's identity from Kingren, his daily routine had not changed at all, except for one thing. Now he keeps an eye on Strand, for example, waking him up when it's time to eat. This little guy is obsessed with food. The food in question is the power Ruin gets from quests. Strand feeds on his power. The unique skill of one star of the countries called Companion accelerates the development of Ruin. The growth of the Companion is divided between the two of them. The unique skill gives 100 strength. The Companion explains to the owner that the guy will be able to get plus 200 to his strength when he gets 2 stars, 300 when he gets 3, and so on ad infinitum until the country was sealed the last time he had 31 stars. Ruin is shocked by the indicators that Draca received. He does not understand how he achieved this and asks the bear cub if there is a way to increase his strength other than completing tasks. Strand laughs, says that this is why he is great, promises to tell the methods after Ardell gives him a glass of water, but the guy answers in a similar manner, suggesting that the bear die of hunger if he does not want to talk. The Companion explains that there are many ways to become stronger. For example, Ruin can take on more difficult tasks, and strength is also given when creating items or finding an artifact. The guy can also cook ogre tendons and make an elixir, but this is not for Ruin, since for such options you need to gain at least 1000 strength. Ardell's body won't be able to withstand the power that is growing exponentially, and now the guy looks like a child who has just started walking. Ruin thought he had become stronger, but it turns out he was only at the beginning of the journey, in which case his next goal is to gain 1000 strength. Ardell trained every day to increase his physical strength, and when it reached 930, the third stage of the exam, the real fight, began. Usually mages attack from behind, so there is a chance that in the general chaos the spell can hit their own. This is a test to check how much the mages manage risks. This stage can be said to be the most important of all. Jason Damon is one of the first to be eliminated, and the Knights of Falder are called in to ensure the exam is carried out safely. The test lasted 10 days. Depending on the points received, the students were given different monsters. At the end of the last day, 13 students with high points were identified. Since today is the last day of the test, everyone is very curious about what kind of monster will appear before them. This time it turns out to be an orc who makes very scary sounds and looks frightening. Orcs live in groups and are spread throughout the continent. They are much larger than humans and have comparable intellectual abilities. Orcs are cruel by nature, so wars constantly occur between them and humans. The students are very scared. They think that fighting an orc as part of the exam is wrong, because someone could die at his hands. Professor Heidel advises young magicians to keep an open mind and consider this battle as a real fight and give it their all. The knights protect Mikkel, who fires ice arrows at the orc, but the orc turns out to be smarter and jumps over the entire defense in one jump. Heidel shouts at the student to dodge. Mikkel himself understands this, but his body is paralyzed with fear and he cannot move. To protect the young mage, Hadel directs the magic of the tree prison at the orc, and Garikil is eliminated from the test. Elik is unhappy that his nephew failed again. He decides that he must somehow prevent Ruin from passing the test. He tells the head of the academy that it would be unfair to evaluate Ardal, who received the highest score from Kingren, equally with the other students. Professor Ignat understands what Elik is getting at, but says that they still don't have any other monsters for Ruin. Uncle Mikkel says that when Falder's knights brought the orcs, 4 more ogres were brought with them. The head of the academy understands that using an ogre in the test is very dangerous. But since there are strong professors and knights present at the exam, he agrees to see what Ruin is really capable of. The next day, Professor Heidel meets Ardal in the academy corridor. He wants to warn the boy that today, his test will be more difficult than the others. The boy doesn't understand what he's talking about. The professor explains that the academy expects a lot from him since Kingren gave him the highest score. So some people think it's unfair to give Ruin the same monster as the others. Ardal asks not to drag it out, but to say what this means, Hadel says that the guy will fight not with an orc, but with an ogre. The guy starts to get very worried. His companion laughs at the situation his master finds himself in. Mikkel sees a very fierce opponent for the next student, much more powerful than the one he fought. The guy thinks it is an orc captain, but someone tells him it is an ogre. One of the knights brings out an ogre. He thinks that it is wrong to use an ogre to test skills. He is very interested in how strong that student is. Ogres are very similar in appearance to orcs, but are physically much stronger, and can crush a skull or dislocate vertebrae with a single blow. The knight asks Heidel if they are sure of this decision, since even they had a hard time capturing him. The professor replies that everything has already been decided by the head of the academy. The man says that it seems like the academy likes to put their lives on the line. Then Ruin appears from behind, confirming the knight's words. The knight looks at Ardal carefully. He is very surprised that this guy was put against the ogre. He thinks that this brat has no chance to defeat him. Ruin heads to take a position. The knight doesn't understand where the boy is going, because they are supposed to protect him. But the boy says that he needs to stand in front, because his magic is different from the usual. The knight tries to reason with the guy. He explains that they won't be able to protect him like that, and he's not an orc. You can't mess around with him. Ardal says that he understands everything and is ready to fight. The knight is a little stunned, but he does not feel any fear from the guy, from which he concludes that Ruin is really different from the others. The test begins. The knights still try to stand in front. The ogre rushes into a swift attack. Ruin breaks through his defenses and runs straight at the ogre. The knights try to stop him, but all in vain. The guy creates a huge fireball and uses it in close combat against a huge opponent. Everyone around is shocked. A blinding flash hides the opponents. No one understands what is happening and just hopes that the guy is alive. The smoke clears. Ruin is on his feet. The knight approaches the guy and says that he should have told him right away what he was planning because he almost died. Ardal says that then he would hardly have been allowed to act in such a way. The man is confused, but the guy interrupts the conversation, says that now is not the time for talking. First, you need to complete the test. A ferocious ogre comes out of the darkness. The knight pushes Ruin away. He understands that the guy is strong, but it is too dangerous, so he asks him to stay aside while they figure everything out. Ardal has no intention of giving up. He steps forward, saying that this is his test, so he must complete it himself. Ruin doesn't know how it happened. There was an ogre 5 times his size standing in front of him, against whom he had to fight. The boy had 2 reasons that gave him courage. The first was his skill, namely the title he received from Kingren, which allowed him to communicate with games. Ruin understood what the ogre was screaming about. Ordinary people only saw a ferocious monster, but not Ardal. This ogre was scared because he was surrounded by mages and knights. He asked to be freed. The second reason was the emergency task that appeared, where it was necessary to subdue the enemy and deliver 1 blow. A wonderful reward in the form of the player's eye skill and plus 30 to strength also increased Ruin's motivation. The boy had no reason to hesitate, so without thinking he rushed to attack the terrifying ogre. The monster was furious. He rushed at the guy with terrifying speed. He screamed that he would kill this man by breaking his head. Ardal realizes that he needs to find the ogre's weak spot, so he uses the time refraction skill, and all the spectators are shocked by Ruin's speed. The boy gets closer to the ogre and hits the vulnerable point, but the ogre continues to fight back. The knights admire the bravery of the student. The ogre throws the guy back, then quickly catches up with him and tries to deal crushing blows. But Ruin dodges. The monster calls him a dodgy rat. Ardal instantly appears behind the ogre and deals him a powerful blow, from which the monster flies to the ground. The guy quickly climbs onto the ogre's body. He decides it's time to end this, So he uses the ogre's rage skill, which increases his strength. The monster is no longer sure that there is a human in front of him. Ruin answers the ogre. He is shocked that the guy understands his language, but he understands it himself. Ardal already raises his hand with a powerful fireball. He delivers his skill-enhanced blow right into the monster's face. The ground beneath the ogre's body cracks. The guy doesn't understand whether this is the end or not. Strand is delighted with his owner. This guy turned out to be even better than he expected. No one can believe that Ruin actually defeated him. His classmates are delighted, Alec is in a panic, the other professors are in shock. The knights, Hadel and Ruin stand around the body of a dead ogre. A familiar man asks the guy who taught him to fight like that. He replies that no one. The knight cannot believe that Ardal was able to learn this himself. Ruin asks Professor Hadel for his assessment of the test, but he says that he didn't believe at all that the boy would be able to defeat the ogre. Ardal once again exceeded all expectations and apparently passed the test to the maximum. For completing the task, Ruin receives the player's eye skill. With its help, Ardal can see the nature of everything. Also collect and digitize all information, sense surveillance, and track the invisible. Strand congratulates the guy on such a cool skill, saying that only now has he become a real player. Ardal did not fully understand his new abilities. The bear cub explains that all enemies hiding themselves with magic will be visually different for the guy. A faint outline will be visible around them. Here comes another bonus in the form of a mini-map. Strand immediately explains that with its help, you can see everything within a radius of 500 meters. Before the companion can finish telling the story, another bonus arrives. Ruin will be able to see the status window of the desired target. Access to viewing information depends on the level of the target. Strand says that there are even more surprises. He offers Ardal to look at the defeated ogre using the player's eye. The boy does so with disbelief. The status window for the shovel ogre appears. It has 3 stars out of 4. It says that it lives in the Thunder Mountains. It has protruding shoulder blades. It is smaller in size than normal ogres, and it is also weaker than other representatives. The guy is delighted with the new skill and decides to immediately check Professor Hadel. But besides the fact that he is a 6th class mage, he does not see anything. The information is not yet available for reading. Ruin asks his companion why the information is limited. Strand replies that he cannot receive data on people who are much stronger than the guy. Also, as the strength grows, the amount of information available for viewing will also increase. The guy accepts such conditions. After the trial by actual combat was completed, rumors of Ruin Ardal defeating the ogre spread throughout the academy. The guy is talking to his neighbor. Jason asks how Rowena feels about everyone talking about him. But the guy doesn't understand yet. This is all new to him. Here, 3 girls approach Ardal. They are delighted with the guy's amazing performance in the 3rd stage, and they hand him a bag with something tasty as a gift. Ruin offers the bag to his neighbor, who becomes furious, thinking it's terribly disrespectful to the girl who overcame her embarrassment and packed him a snack. Ardal decides to look at Jason with the player's eye and sees that he has high potential, and also that his neighbor is jealous of him. Over the past few days, Ruin had checked everyone at the academy, and besides Jason, only Mikkel had high potential. The main character asks his neighbor to try a little harder, and then, he is sure, Jason will show a good result on the next test. The guy is surprised that Ruin suddenly took a liking to him, but Ardal says that he just wanted to say that his neighbor has high potential and good skills. All that remains is to be confident in himself and work harder. Ruin also asks Jason not to spend all his time playing games. The neighbor promises that he will get into the top 10 at the next stage, although this will be problematic. Jason suddenly asks Ruin if it's really him. Sometimes he finds it hard to believe. He's just wondering if this is the same person in front of him with whom he's been in close contact for 6 years. Ardal replies that yes, it is him. The guy understands why the neighbor asks such questions, because even he himself sometimes finds it difficult to believe all this. Damon says that there have been rumors about Ruin lately. Everyone thinks that Ardal will push out Mikkel Garrigal and become not only the best graduate, but also the representative of the academy. Ruin says he doesn't care and stands up. Jason doesn't understand why the guy is so calm about this, because this year is the year of the great festival. In the 5th month of every year, representatives of famous academies gather together and determine the best among them by holding a magic festival. And once every 8 years, an Olympics is held, where participants compete for the title of the best magician. The intersection of these 2 events is called the Great Festival. This is a national competition for the best students of the most famous academies. The winner of this festival and the academy he represents not only receive a huge cash prize, but can also acquire various privileges. Therefore, there is a limit on the number of students, 1 student for individual competitions, 30 for group competitions. a total of 31 from the academy, and the one who is chosen for individual competitions becomes the representative of the academy. At the general dinner, everyone discusses who will become the representative of the academy. Many think of Garikil, but there are also those who are sure that it will be Ruin, because he is the only magician who received 100 points from Kingren. Jason suggests recalling all the times Mikkel has taken part in the Magic Festival. There is nothing to say about the group competitions, and in the individual competitions he was last 4 times out of 5. Because of Garikil, they were even dubbed a post-academy, incapable of performing well in either individual or group competitions. Many believe that the only way to get rid of this stigma is to send Ruin. Everyone is interested in what Ardal himself thinks about this. The guy says that the exam is not over yet, and therefore it is too early to draw any conclusions or expect anything. Ultimately, the participants of the Great Festival are selected based on the results of the first semester exam and recommendations from the faculty. There is still the 4th stage ahead, a one-on-one fight. Ruin will be fighting against Mikkel, so he needs to focus on this test. All he can think about is beating him. 4 days after the completion of the 3rd stage, Ruin received 1000 strength and the achievement of completing the preparation. Strand is sincerely glad that he finally waited for this day. He offers to start leveling up. Now the difficulty of the repeating task is doubled, and the reward is tripled. Strand makes some movements, then jumps onto the guy's shoulder and bursts into a blinding flame. Professor Ellic stands by the window and reflects on Ruin's battle with the ogre. He realizes that the guy earned a lot of points for this test. The man wonders if Mikkel will be able to win against April and realizes that it is highly unlikely. Now, not only is his participation in the Great Festival at risk, but even his place as the best graduate is at risk. The Garikil family must be at the top of the academy no matter what. Meanwhile, Strand advanced to rank 2, and Ruin received plus 200 strength as a reward. The bear's size increased, and thanks to him, Ruin's strength quickly reached 1200. The guy asks to explain what happened. Strand says this is just the beginning. He bets the difficulty of the tasks and rewards have also increased. He suggests taking a look. The status window says that Ardal has reached the basic level of physical strength needed for battle. But training never ends. You need to keep moving forward. Now Ruin needs to perform 5,000 hits, run 15 kilometers, and practice in real combat, for which he will receive a plus 30 to strength. Ruin doesn't understand only one thing. What kind of real fight is this? Strand explains that now he can transform, but for now, there are limitations. The fight training will be with him. Ardal asks if Strand can take the form of a human. He replies that yes, but only when he reaches the 5th rank, and even then with difficulty. The guy is very interested in who his companion might turn into in this case. He asks to show. The bear cub begins to transform. Strand turns into a scarecrow, which causes mixed feelings in the guy. The companion does not like this reaction and openly talks about it. Ruin apologizes. The companion asks not to look down on the scarecrow because, in this guise, he was very useful when Draca first started real training. Ruin understands that this means that Strand is acting as a dummy. The companion clarifies that this is more likely the role of an assistant in completing the task. Now, every day, Ardal needs to undergo training in a real fight with a scarecrow. Strand reports that since he is still weak, his level corresponds to a 3rd-class mage. However, when he regains his former power, everything will be possible. If Ruin wishes, he will even be able to turn into a demon or a dragon. Ardal suggests starting the training right now and asks Strand to turn into a magician. The bear cub likes it, and a staff appears in his paw. He tells the owner that even if his magic hits the guy, it will at most knock him back without causing damage, and Ruin himself can attack as much as he wants. The guy is very happy. Strand really turned out to be the best partner for training in combat, so they begin the exercise. Even during training, Ruin thinks about the future fight with Mikkel. He is sure that his opponent is also training now. Meanwhile, Garikil talks to his uncle. He asks what he should do with this son of a bitch who is so annoying. Ellic is unhappy. He thinks that Mikkel has no right to ask him such a thing, because if he were stronger, then no problems would have happened. But the guy doesn't think so. He thinks that his uncle has no right to be indignant, because according to rumors, it was he who contributed to Ruin getting high scores. The professor doesn't understand what they're talking about, but Garikil explains that it was he who suggested betting an ogre against Ruin, which is how he got the best result. And if their family finds out about this, things will be bad for Ellic. Ellic is furious at Mikkel's impudence. Did this damn boy really decide to blackmail him? Garikil says that they have no time to chat idle. They need to think of something to fix this terrible situation. Mikkel is very afraid that Ardal will become the Academy's representative at the Great Festival. Ellic says that there is no need to worry, as he has an idea. The uncle hands the guy a bottle with a sprout inside. It is the Herb of Awakening, a flaming flower. Mikkel is very happy. The flaming flower grows in the northern territories of hallucinations and is a rare and valuable medicinal plant, sometimes used to create special elixirs. Alec explains that if Mikkel drinks this, he will receive the effect of awakening. It will significantly reduce the time of invocation of spells. But as a side effect, the guy will experience pain and will stop distinguishing between his own and others. Garrikill doubts that he really needs to drink it. Alec thinks that, roughly speaking, losing his sight is not a reason to complain, because he already lost to that guy, and now he can even fly out of the family in disgrace. Mikkel understands that this is still a risky undertaking, because Professor Heidel knows very well what he is capable of, and if he notices changes, he will not remain silent. Alec smugly declares that the guy has forgotten himself too much, because in front of him is the one who conducts drug testing, which means everything will be under control. The uncle gives the guy another bottle of potion that will hide the fact that he took the flower. It needs to be drunk after the first one. Alec also asks the boy not to be afraid, because they are the Garrikill family, and this is their way of moving forward. The day of one-on-one combat has finally arrived. The exam stage is held in the Mana Barrier Hall. Every year during the one-on-one fights, the stands are filled to capacity, as they were this time. The time has come for Ruin and Mikkel to fight. Both enter the arena, with Ardal's companion sitting on his shoulder. The main character is very happy that the final stage of the exam has finally arrived, where he will meet his main rival. Strand warns his master that the enemy knows that Ruin will try to close the distance, and if he is prepared for this, the fight will be difficult. Ardal understands that if he does manage to get to Garrikill, one blow will be enough. Since this test is as close as possible to real combat conditions, various geographic objects are placed in the hall. The referee asks if the boys are ready for the fight. Mikkel simply answers yes. Ruin is not used to seeing Garrikill so calm. He decides that something is wrong with this bastard. Ardal decides to check it with the player's eye and notices a line with a special berserker state. Information about this is hidden. Ruin has never seen such a notification, and in a hidden form the boy understands that Garrikill took something so that the others would not discover that he drank some kind of drug. Before the exam, a drug test was conducted, and Professor Alec was responsible for it. And then Ruin realizes that his uncle somehow helped Mikkel hide the fact that he was taking drugs. The judge explains that the only forbidden magic in the duel is black magic. Any magic based on the 4 elements is allowed. Points are awarded based on the level of magic that hits the opponent. There is no need to worry about your opponent, because they are in the Mana Barrier Hall, where the effectiveness of magic is reduced by 99%. The professor asks if the boys have any questions. Ruin raises his hand and asks, "What will happen if it turns out that someone took the forbidden potion?" Mikkel is shocked. The judge informs that anyone who has taken a prohibited drug will be disqualified from taking the exam and will fail. Depending on the severity of the violation, various punishments may be considered, including expulsion. The professor asks why Ruin is interested in this. He replies that it is not that important, and then the referee separates them into positions to begin the fight. Ardal understands that now he has no evidence because only he can see the status window, so no one will believe him. He is going to get some ironclad proof. On the count of 3, the fight begins. Both guys immediately rush towards each other. Mikkel is already loading his hand with a spell. Ruin's leg is tied up by some plant, but the guy quickly breaks the spell. The whole audience is shocked that he was able to free himself so quickly, and Mikkel's spell did not work on him properly. Ardal is very happy that the Mana Barrier Hall reduces the power of mana, but does not affect his power in any way. Mikkel uses a powerful spell, Fire Breath, and a skull flies out of his hands, setting everything around him on fire. Ruin dodges this terrible attack and hides behind a stone wall, now realizing that the potion that Mikkel drank reduced the time it takes to summon magic and increase the collection of mana. An enraged Garrikill shouts at Ardal to stop hiding. Ruin notices that the boy is more agitated than usual and is now sure that Mikkel drank the awakening herb. In Ruin's head, everything comes together. Mikkel's hands are shaking, there is excessive expression, suppression of pain receptors, and a decrease in the ability to distinguish between opponents and comrades. He only had to confirm one more thing: whether Mikkel had reduced sensitivity to pain. Ruin confidently steps out from behind the wall and states that he knows why Mikkel is acting so confident. Garrikill breaks out in a cold sweat when he hears the words "flaming flower" from Ardal's mouth. But Ruin says that none of this matters. It won't stop him from defeating the dishonest bastard. The guy uses time refraction. Mikkel can't catch him. Ruin moves too fast. Ardal almost catches up with Garrikill, but he manages to use third-class magic, Fire Lizard. The main character does not get lost and uses earthly magic, creating a powerful earthquake, which causes violent emotions from all the viewers. Mikkel is very upset that his best magic was so easily defeated, and now in one move his worst enemy is very close. Ruin asks him not to be such a softie and is about to give him a simple flick, but the guy's strength is so great that the blow slams Mikkel into the wall. Garishil is furious. He understands that no one has the right to look down on him, so he immediately rushes into the attack, but Ruin gets ahead of him. Mikkel even breaks stone slabs with his body from such a blow, but he does not feel pain, only rage. Ruin understands that at this rate the guy can die from accumulated injuries and it is dangerous to continue the test. Ardell wraps Garishil in earth magic, plant stems, raises his hand and says that Mikkel used a prohibited drug. The judge approaches the guy and tells him that if Ruin is not sure about his statement, then it is better to withdraw it, because if it is a lie, then he will be disqualified. Ardell is confident, he says, that drug use can always be hidden from others, or the inspector can turn a blind eye to the violation. Alec starts to panic a little, and the guy continues, saying that the one who can get some rare materials for his favorite, and the one who conducts drug testing before matches, and in the entire academy, there is only one person who fits that description. All the professors begin to understand what the guy is talking about, but Alec tries to refute such statements towards him and runs out into the arena. Ruin says he is ready to prove his words. Alec exhales, saying that he will gladly conduct another drug test, but Ardell interrupts him, saying that it is useless, because it was Alec who gave Mikkel a special elixir to hide the fact of taking it. Alec does not understand what Ardell is proposing in this case, since he promised to prove his words. The guy quickly grows a tree and then immediately smashes it to pieces with one blow, and then explains that this is how strong the flick he gave Mikkel was. The guy goes deeper and says that even if we assume that Mikkel's magic was stronger after practice, he continued to laugh and remain conscious after such a blow, which is not normal. In his current state, he has at least a concussion and 4 broken ribs. As if confirming Ruin's words, Mikkel continues to laugh in the bonds in which his enemy has trapped him. Ardell turns to Alec, who is sweaty and red as a tomato, and asks if he will continue to deny the obvious. Here, Professor Ignat stands up and angrily asks Alec how he dared to do such a thing on the sacred territory of the exam. He invites him to come into the office. Absolutely everyone is shocked by this outcome of events, and Mikkel still continues to hang in the air and laugh. The events of the 4th stage have swept through the academy like a storm. They say that Professor Alec was fired, Mikkel was expelled. The fraud of the Garishil family has come to light. Ruin himself acquired a new nickname. Now he is the exorcist of magicians. And Ardell was also summoned to the head of the academy. Behind the huge doors, Ruin meets their family's park. Everything is green. And also Theron's throne awaits, on which the king of magicians sits. The guy does not understand what to do. And then the head of Ignat appears behind him. They head off along a path together. Ignat explains that the appearance of this place is created using the Eye of Malarok. Malarok is the leader of the demons that invaded the continent of Frelia. He is said to have the power to make the target see what they desire most. After Malarok's fall, his parts were turned into artifacts. Ignite reports that Malarok's eye shows the world and images that Ruin wishes to see. Ardell thinks and realizes that he truly wants to see his family's territory flourish and become the best magician. The head of the academy asks if the boy is interested in knowing what he himself sees. Ruin understands that he wants to hear it. Ignat says that he sees a world in which students behave like students and mages like mages. Before entering the gates, Ruin turns around and looks at everything he desires. He sees himself as a winner and the best graduate. The guy finds himself in the office of the head of the academy. Ignat offers him a cup of tea and asks him to answer some questions. The professor asks how Ruin was able to determine that Mikkel used the flaming flower. Ardell says that Garishil was not acting as usual. The guy immediately thought of a flaming flower because of his aggressive and at the same time anxious behavior. Also, the flow of mana around him was unusual, and the mana itself was strengthened. Ignite doesn't quite understand, because based on what he saw, Ruin not only suspected Mikkel of taking the flower, but was sure of it. He asked what the reason for such confidence is. The guy understands that there is no need to talk about the player's eye, so he talks about his power, which the mana barrier could not suppress. Ardell says that even if Mikkel was in a state of shock, his laughter despite his injuries can only be explained by the consumption of the flaming flower. Ignite realizes that at 16 years old, Ruin is perceptive enough to instantly notice subtle changes in an opponent, and is able to remain calm in critical situations, and the boy also has undeniable magical abilities. He tells the guy that, as the head of the academy, he is terribly sorry about what happened and apologizes, and Ignite also promises to personally ensure that the Garishil family does not harm him. Ignite also invites Ardell to participate in the Great Festival as a representative of their academy. The guy couldn't even dream of such a thing, but of course he suspected something like that when he was called to the office of the head of the academy. He thanks Ignite, but believes that he lacks experience, as he has not fought in real battles in the past 5 years. Due to Ruin's mana release disorder, all events have been closed to him, so he doesn't know if he can perform well at the Grand Festival against other gifted peers. Ignite says that this is not a problem at all. Moreover, as a judge at the Great Festival, the processor believes that Ardell is more worthy of being considered a candidate for victory than anyone else. The head of the academy also says that the guy will become their secret weapon, appearing out of nowhere. From the opponent's point of view, Ruin is a dark horse. There is no information about him, so they will not be able to develop methods and strategies against the magic that Ardell uses. The guy understands that his eternal last place played to his advantage. No one ever looked at him, unlike Mikkel. So it will be difficult for opponents to catch Ruin off guard. Ignite waits for an answer from the guy, and Ardell agrees to participate, and even promises to do everything possible to justify the Archmage's trust. At that moment, someone knocks on the door. Ignite says that he assumed that it would be more beneficial for the boy to attend body arts classes than to study magic, so he invited a martial arts professor. Ruin immediately recognizes the man. It turns out to be Golter Pirante, the knight who tried to protect the boy from the ogre. He greets the desperate student. Pirant is the leader of the Knightly Order of the Foldrin Territory, one of the 5 knights of the 6th rank and the only one in the Kingdom of Radian. Ardell sits down at the table with his new teacher. The boy is glad that he had the opportunity to receive instructions from Pirante. Golter heard from Heidel that Ruin is a special mage who is forced to fight exclusively at close range. Ardell confirms these words. Also, the knight can say from their previous meeting that the guy's attacks are quite good, clear, and without unnecessary movements. However, it is obvious to Pirant that Ardell has never studied martial arts properly, and a skilled knight will read the guy like an open book. Ruin understands that his mentor is right, because his movements are the result of repeating the same strikes within the framework of the task, so their practical application is very limited. The knight encourages the upset student, informing him that after his lessons, Ruin will be able to advance beyond the basics, and he suggests starting right now. Golter says that the most important thing for a knight is his legs. They give strength to the sword and allow one to predict the enemy's actions. So first you need to learn how to walk correctly. Only after that you can begin to study the art of the body. The training center usually teaches the heavenly martial art. Except for the sword techniques, the heavenly martial art includes 36 fighting techniques. The guy doesn't understand why Pirant took him on, because it won't bring any benefit to the knight. He'll have to come to the academy every day for no reason. Golter replies that this is a kind of investment, because he met a man who can become a great magician. If the knight can provide him with at least some help, then in the future he will be worthily rewarded. Ardell accepts this answer. He bows to Professor Pirante and says that he is ready for any training. The knight is extremely uncomfortable with this situation. He asks the guy to call him simply Golter and not Bao, because he is not much older. He is not even 30 yet. This fact shocks Ruin. They continue training. Pirante is pleased with his student. The guy is doing well and is not lacking in endurance. Golter recalls that with his blow Ruin was able to break the ogre's jaw. The melee mage is physically stronger than such a monster, for the knight Ardell is a very interesting young man. 3 weeks passed in such training, during which Ruin improved his body art skill to the 10th level, received the achievement The Whole Body as a Weapon, and improved the skill Magician of Madness. Now the guy can fill every part of his body with magic. The guy is delighted with such an effect from mastering the heavenly martial arts. Stran is also happy. He has already advanced to rank 3. Ruin's strength is already equal to 2130. Stran reports that the guy is getting stronger very quickly. Draka at one time gained such a level for more than 2 years. The companions' dialogue is interrupted by Jason, who approaches them at great speed. He reports that a list of participants in the Great Festival has been posted at the entrance to the academy. Ardell falls into memories. At the entrance ceremony, he introduced new students and spoke on stage. Because of this, he was envied and received distrustful glances, justifying the secret desires of other students. All these years, Ardell showed himself only from the pitiful side and could only watch from afar as Mikkel received all the laurels. Now, Ardell has become the Academy's representative at the Great Festival in individual competitions. Everyone congratulates the guy on such a victory. No one forgets about Jason, who became the 31st participant. It took a long time, but Ruin became the representative of the Academy again, just like 6 years ago. Heidel says he was very surprised when he heard from Sir Golter that Ruin had mastered the celestial martial art. But the fact that the boy was able to get a 5th grade at 16 years old completely amazed him. Ardal's genius sometimes frightens him. Preparations for the Great Festival went smoothly, after which all the representatives went to Altain, the venue of the festival. Everyone is discussing their next journey. It lies on the Mana train, which is very fast, and none of the guys have ridden it. Hank shuts everyone up. He doesn't like the fact that these rednecks are making such a noise, as if no one had ever seen a train. This freak sang along with Mikkel. He took part in the Magic Festival with him last year. Hanks thinks that hoping for Ruin to perform a miracle at the Great Festival is useless. In his opinion, Ardell is too proud, although good grades for one semester are not much to be proud of. He also believes that the representatives of other academies are like ghosts, and they would have a better chance if they had chosen Mikkel, who had already fought against them, as their representative. Hanks reports that his guys won't recognize Ruin as a representative anyway, so he and Jason will have to handle it themselves. Ardell understands that many are looking to gain an advantage by somehow currying favor with the Garrikill family. But no matter what, they are obliged to perform well, even if someone does not agree with his candidacy. Ruin says Mikkel would be flattered. His dogs remain loyal even when their owner is kicked out of the academy. Hanks is furious, and Ardell continues, saying that he deliberately expressed himself as clearly as possible so that even a person with such a low level of intelligence would understand everything. An argument breaks out, but Ruin still continues to say that this festival will be a level above those that Hanks attended, and if you achieve good results in it, you can get more opportunities than the connections with the Garrikill family could provide. Hanks agrees with Ardell, but he believes that it will be impossible for them to achieve anything since the other academies are filled with monsters. So ultimately, their fate will be to be stuck in the Radiant Kingdom and work under the Garrikill family. But Ruin believes that they can win, because in a great festival, cooperation plays an important role, so they should use those who interfere with teamwork. Everyone thinks that with these words, Ruin is throwing them out of the team, but the guy suggests that they think better while they are on the road about who is their representative now. He also reminds that there is no one from the Garrikill family here to judge their loyalty. Hanks warns Ardell that if he loses his individual battle, he will not listen to a single command from him at the Great Festival. The Mana train is racing at an amazing speed. Strawn is delighted with the modern world, because in his time no one even thought about ordinary trains. Representatives of the National Magic Institute of Owen appear in the carriage. These guys immediately call everyone a redneck from the Post Academy. The Magic Institute is the only educational institution in Owen, the Sand Kingdom of the Desert, and is known for its ancient history as well as its revered school of swordsmanship and extreme body training. The guy from Owen is looking for Mikkel. He wanted to ask this idiot to take care of his guys this year as a servant. He also asks if these idiots will also take the last place this year. Strand laughs at the indifference of his master, who didn't even bat an eyelid after such words. Ardell had never participated in such events, so he had no idea that their academy was being so openly oppressed. Professor Heidel, who acts as an escort, calmly reads the book and has no intention of interceding. Ruin understands that now the power and responsibility for the team is in his hands, as a representative of the academy. A bully from Owen approaches Hanks and asks him where their representative Mikkel is hiding. At least he was interesting. Ardell gets up and tells the thug that Mikkel is probably lying in bed right now, praying that his broken ribs will heal properly. Hank says indifferently that this guy is their current representative. The big guy is a little shocked, because he sees him for the first time. The brute approaches Ruin and tells him that his name is Seth Malkiri. He is a representative of Owen. Ruin also says his name, and then asks Seth to get out of their car if he is done looking for problems. Malkiri is perplexed by this behavior. Then Ardell tells him that before leaving, he needs to apologize for all the insults voiced in a polite manner. Seth is furious at the guy's audacity and turns to Hanks and asks why he didn't tell his representative who Malkiri was. Hanks is afraid of this brute. Ruin understands what is going on here. Apparently, the students who participated in the Magic Festival are trembling in the presence of Ina, due to the fact that they were attacked by Malkiri. Ardell concludes that this is their plan, to crush the opponent's morale before the battle. Apparently, the Great Festival has already begun. Ruin suggests that Seth sort things out on the spot, but Seth thinks that the guy has gone crazy, but he is not going to cower from his words and rushes into the attack with his fists. But then he is stopped by the shout of a professor from his institute. He asks his student to sit down and calm down, if he does not want to make enemies for himself from the very beginning. This man apologizes for his students to Professor Heidel, who accepts them calmly. The professor from Owen pushes Malkiri in the back and demands that he go to his carriage. On the way, Seth promises Ruin to deal with him later. Ardell understands that it will not be easy here. Malkiri does not understand why the professor stopped them, because he himself suggested this method of behavior. John McCain explains that Hadel's behavior changed their plans. Seth doesn't understand what he's talking about. John explains that the Ignite Academy professor was smirking as he watched him, as if he was just waiting for a fight. McCain says there was some kind of confidence. This guy named Ruin definitely has something they don't know about. And he's definitely different from Garachil, who Malkiri fought last time. After a short showdown with Owina, the atmosphere in the carriage changed to friendly. Everyone is discussing the first group battle, which will take place without Ruin. They are ready to win. From a certain point on, these guys, filled with envy and selfishness, began to unite. Hanks tries to explain to Ruin that he probably shouldn't have stood up for them because these tough guys literally grew up in battles. But Ardell believes that there is no other way. These freaks do not respect them completely openly, and if the guy did not answer them, they would only be happy and would start to laugh at them even more. He asks the others if they are willing to continue to endure disrespect and watch as they are further dragged through the mud. Everyone ends up in an awkward situation, and after a while, one student suggests that Ruin put Hanks in goal at the aeroball match. Ardell understands that, apparently, Mikkel's supporters have also decided to side with him, and now they need to maintain the same attitude until the very end. The train arrives at the Duchy of Alten, a state that is part of the Imperial Federation of Rheinach, the only one recognized as neutral in the entire empire. In this territory, everyone must put aside their emotions, even if they have been implacable enemies for decades. If bloodshed occurs on the territory of Altan, the Empire of Rheinach, represented by the ruler of the continent, will hold a trial of the criminals and repay them for the atrocities they have committed. Due to this state of affairs, large-scale international competitions such as the Magic Festival and the Sword Grand Prix are held in Altain. The arriving students admire the Imperial Federation. Jason, who comes from a rich region, admires it the most, saying that this Altain is incomparable. Ruin notes that the place exudes a noble antiquity, and the residents stroll the streets carefree, as one would expect from the capital of a kingdom. Heidel asks everyone to get into the carriages, in which the students will go to their temporary place of residence. The professor himself rides in a carriage with Ruin and Jason and says that he really hopes that none of them will go to the participants from other schools, even by mistake, because nothing good will come out of a fight. Strand notices something in the window and asks Ardell to look too. A very interesting smell is coming from there, as if a relic of Drac is located here. The next morning, Ruin escapes from the Ignite Academy premises where they live, Jason thinking that the guy is going on a date. On the way, the guy opens the map on the status window. Strand explains the way, and in the end, the final destination turns out to be a workshop of touching memories. Ardell believed that the item that the Black Dragon himself used would be in a more unusual place. This one was somehow too ordinary. The guy imagined that he would end up on the black market or a rich man's warehouse, but Strand explains that Drac's relic is useless for mages who do not use force-based magic. For them, that item will be ordinary trash. Ruin uses the player's eye and immediately notices the Ring of Invulnerability, an exclusive, unique artifact of the player with 3 stars. This is the first artifact created by Drac, but also his first failure using the power of invulnerability. There is a small chance to withstand any physical force that affects the body. The ring also increases the chance to nullify physical damage. The guy doesn't understand what the word failure means. Strand laughs and explains that it's not just about attacks. Resistance will arise even from the touch of a friend or the embrace of a lover. The effect may not activate when it is really needed, and it may work on something mundane, hence the failure. But the companion is sure that Ruin still needs it. When wearing the ring, the player's strength increases by 200 units, so the guy doesn't even resist and puts on the artifact. The guy approaches the seller and asks the price of the ring, but he tells him to take it for free, since it has been lying in the workshop for many years and no one needs it. Ardell, as a token of gratitude, promises to buy something else and now walks around the workshop with his companion. Using the player's eye, he can determine the value of an item. After several completely useless books with low to medium rarity, Ruin comes across one with a high stat, a book called Quantum Mechanics of Magic and Sword. Ardell reaches out to the book, but at that moment a girl appears who also intends to buy this treasure. Ruin immediately scans the girl and finds out that she is Irene Prius from Seika Women's University, a 5th-level mage with high potential. The Filthy King, also known as the King of Magicians and the King of the Border, Heron Artemis, chose 11 magicians to represent the next generation, and Irene is one of them. Ardell heard that this girl was a genius, close to reaching the 5th grade, but Irene had already reached the 5th grade, so the rumors even underestimated the reality. The young people begin to figure out who will take the book. Ruin says that he touched it first, And Prius believes that since the guy found what he was looking for, and the book just like that, then he is not worthy of it, because she, in turn, came specifically for this book. The guy is ready to give up the book if the girl explains why she needs it. He also points out that she overheard his conversation with the seller, probably because they are both participating in the Great Festival. Irene explains that this book is part of her individual assignment. She cannot tell Ruin the details and asks him not to ask about it. The guy understands that such an assignment can hardly be from an educational institution. He assumes that this is an assignment from the Dirty King. He gives the book to Prius because he sees that it is really important to her. The girl did not expect that the guy would give in so quickly. When Ruin returns home, Jason and Hanks start to bombard him with questions. They are interested in the appearance of Prius and Ardell's meeting with her in general. Damon is jealous. He dreams of touching Irene's hand at least once. The guys condemn him for such simple desires. Hank says that he also saw Irene at the Great Festival and even sat next to her. Jason is hysterical, since even this sycophant spoke to her, but he did not. Prius is a strong girl anyway, but she always comes in second place. Hanks heard that he is terribly worried about always losing to first place Doom Prime. Jason thinks that it is all nonsense. The guy explains that this is not nonsense. We are talking about number 1 in the special school of combat magicians. Therefore, Doom is the most recognized magician among all his peers on the continent, as well as the owner of a shining sword. Now Ruin understands why Irene needed that book. She is going to defeat Prime. Being a magical swordsman is not that cool. A sword does not give pronounced magic compared to other weapons. Besides, becoming a skilled swordmaster is also not that easy. Hank says that Doom Prime is different from the others. The shining sword is a 5th-class artifact, and his level of swordsmanship is at least that of the average knight. Jason is tilted. With such geniuses around, he will die of envy, Hanks adds, reporting that a plus is a good and wealthy family and good looks. Doom's popularity among girls is simply off the charts. Ruin begins to think. In his head there are 2 images. Irene Prius, who mastered the magic of the 5th level at 16 years old, and the magical swordsman, Doom Prime, who defeats Irene every year. Will he be able to defeat these geniuses? Ardell is definitely someone no one considers a threat. But the guy remembers Ignat's words that he is worthy of being a candidate for victory. Ruin wants to quickly make sure of this. Then a man bursts in and announces that the first lineup for the opening day of the Great Festival must assemble outside. It's time for the opening matches of the Great Festival. The first opponent of the Ignite Academy is the Owen Institute. Seth is happy that his institute is waiting for such an easy victory. He doesn't even have to worry. Ruin considers them the worst opponents for a first fight. These guys are famous for playing dirty, and, in addition, many in the academy are traumatized from interactions with them. The people of Ona laugh, thinking that they are in for a boring fight where they won't even be allowed to flare up. And yet, they are glad that they will face the post-academy. Ardell ignores all the comments made towards them and prepares to show these rude people that his team is not what it used to be. He approaches Seth's men and says that there are many participants here besides them. So he would like to introduce himself and then ask that they no longer be referred to as the Post-Academy, as it is unpleasant. Looking Malkiri in the face himself, Ruin declares that he has been in last place for too long, that he is already tired of it, so now he wants to get to first. The people of Owen do not take Ardell seriously and do not intend to fulfill his requests, and they also laugh at his desire to be first. They don't understand who he is to say such a thing. Ruin replies with a grin that he is the Academy's secret weapon and will never back down. In the house where they live, Owen's people are holding a meeting about the Ardell Ruin. Someone reports that they did a little investigation and found out that this guy had failed at everything before. The guy isn't quite sure, but he read that at the beginning of the semester, Ruin changed dramatically and became a monster with amazing results. Seth doesn't quite understand how this is possible, but now he knows where Ardell gets his self-confidence from. Malkiri remembers that his professor also said that the boy had something they didn't know about, but then decides that it's useless to think about this loser, because he's a post-academy student. He is ready to teach these pompous suckers a lesson in the traditional way of their institute. Tomorrow is the Mana Grenade throwing, a team event where everyone except the representative participates, and there is a meeting going on at the Ignat Academy house. The essence of the competition is to throw grenades filled with mana at a mithril golem. The team that destroys their golem faster wins. Hanks isn't sure they can handle it without Ruin. The guy agrees that compared to Owen's institute, they lack talented students, but Ardell knows how to win. No one even thought about winning, and so Ruin's words cause general shock. Ardell explains that this is a group competition, and if they work together, they can win. He suggests they start forming groups. The first group will heat up the mana grenades, the second will move them, the third team will directly attack the golem, and the fourth will restore the enemy golem. But the guys think this is a bad idea. Because it will take them much longer to destroy the golem, the enemy will attack with all 30 pairs of hands, plus the guys in Owen themselves are not weak. Ruin sees the pessimistic mood and says that his words in front of everyone, that they will be the first, are sincere intentions and not a show-off. That's why Ardell is going to do everything he can to achieve this, including in games where he himself cannot participate. The guy continues to tell his plan. While Wayna will throw one grenade, they will throw 2 or 3 at once. For their team, this method will be more effective. First Hanks and then everyone else say that they trust Ruin. The guy is sincerely happy. He divides the kids into groups based on their strengths. And of course, he made this choice with the help of his superpower. With the player's eye, he was able to see the essence of the target. With its help, he minimized weaknesses and concentrated forces in groups. After such a division into groups where everyone got into a sphere that was ideal for them, the guys believed in victory. And even those who doubted Ruin began to be imbued with confidence. Then a beaten Fulham crawls through the door. The guys immediately rush to help him get up and ask what happened. Fulham says that Owen's representative brought his guys with him. Then they took him out of the room and started beating him. Ruin immediately goes to Malkiri to sort things out. But this is exactly what Seth was waiting for and wanted. He asks what Ardell intends to do. Ruin demands that Owen's representative come out with him immediately. Seth asks why Ruin is acting so brazenly. Ardell puts his hand on his shoulder and squeezes it lightly, causing Malkiri to fall to the floor a second later. He is shocked by the strength of this guy, immediately jumps up and tries to hit Ruin in the face. But he grabs his arm and twists it behind his back. Malkiri screams in pain. Ardell warns that if anyone from Owen touches anyone from the Ignite Academy outside the arena again, they will all end badly. Everyone tries to get up and support their representative, but Ruin stands above them and offers Seth some kind of bet. The guy tells his guys about a bet, according to which, if they defeat Owen, then Seth will get the same flick that knocked out Meekle and will apologize to everyone. Everyone is very energized by this news, and they have a strong motivation to win their first competition. Everyone is called to the Altane Stadium. Historically, magicians who stood out in some way during the festival became important people, writing their names in the history of the continent. Ruin realizes that he has become part of a festival where legends are created, and this inspires him greatly. The opening ceremony is over. All the students must return to their places. On the way, Ardell meets Malkiri, who warns him to be prepared for anything. But Ruin doesn't pay attention to him, because now he is trying to analyze Doom Prime, the winner of the Magic Festival. The man who stands among the leaders in every discipline in the special school of combat magicians. Ardell understands that if his academy continues to win, he will definitely meet Prime. Due to his thoughts, the guy does not notice how Irene is sneaking up on him. The girl says that she realized one thing about Ruin. He is one of those who creates problems wherever he goes. The girl knows that yesterday Ardell created real chaos and even went into open conflict by visiting the house of the Owen Institute. Ruin doesn't understand how Prius knows so much. Irene explains that Altane is a small town. She is sure that absolutely everyone already knows about it. Ardell begins to justify himself, saying that he just wanted to talk. The girl, in exchange for Ruin giving her the book, is ready to give him one piece of advice. She recommends that the guy not stand out. The guy asks if she is suggesting that he hide his true skills just like she does. Ruin doesn't let the girl answer, says that it's time for him to go, since they are participating in the first round and he is already late and runs away. The doctor announces that in just a few minutes the mana grenade will begin to be thrown, with the Ignite Academy and the Uda Institute being the first to participate. The mood in the Ruin team is still there. Everyone is ready to prove that they are no longer post-academy. The first competition finally started. The people in the stands were confused because previously the team competitions were won by those who had outstanding abilities. The division into groups within a single team, which is typical for night competitions, has never been common in magic competitions. People are shocked by the tactics of the Ignite Academy, but everyone is still confident that the Owen Institute will win. And everyone also dislikes Ruin for his straightforward statements. Suddenly, everyone notices that the Academy Golem has lost an arm, and Irina Prius is the most shocked. Ardell led his men and encouraged them from the stands. Under this leadership, the Golem immediately lost its second arm after the first. Seth Malkiri, unlike Ruin, only insults his guys. He also noticed Ardell's clever move. His people treated the Golem of the Owen Institute. Irene watches the events closely, impressed, and understands that the reason Ignite is winning is obviously purely strategic. But the girl also realizes that this approach will only work if there is a clear understanding of each student's strengths. She remembers how easily Ruin found the book that Prius herself had been looking for a long time, and how he divided the children into groups according to their skills. Irene wonders what kind of person this guy is, and how come she has never seen him at any competition before. Meanwhile, Jason launches the last mana grenade and the Ignite Academy golem crumbles. The guys are very happy, they rush to hug each other and look at the stands. Seth is furious. The throwing of the mana grenade, which was expected to result in a victory for the Owen Institute, ended in a victory for the Post Academy. It turns out that the Post Academy is no longer the last one. Now, Wina is in their place. Now they receive the title of Post Academy. The flag-grabbing competition for representatives is about to begin, with the first match being between Ruin Ardal and Seth Malchieri. Strahan asks the owner if he is worried. The guy says that now they are 20 out of 32, and this is ideal. The bear cub does not understand what is ideal about this. Ardal begins to explain that after the last victory, people are showing interest in them again. But this is not enough to remove the label that was attached to them because of the failures of the past years. Now, if they achieve a decisive victory against the ON Institute, then the others will start to look at the academy differently. Ruin also has another goal, which he tells his companion about. Ardal is going to show himself to the King of Magicians. 6 mages of the Dirty King Theron watch in a ball the test of Ruin and Set. One of the mages says that he previously considered Ardal as a candidate for the next generation. Ignite is surprised, but Theron explains that he has a habit of remembering talented guys. And this guy was born with such a huge talent that he was able to instinctively learn magic at a young age. That's why the Dirty Mage's disappointment was enormous when he learned that Ardal had a mana release disorder. Tryon is surprised that Theron was disappointed, since he was the one who thought of Ruin as a useless child. The Dirty Mage says that since this student, who is unable to cast spells properly, was chosen as the representative of the academy, there must have been reasons for it, and he begins to think that perhaps Ruin has overcome his curse. Meanwhile, Strahan explains to Ardal that he needs to use any magic, be it binding or freezing, to get closer to Malchieri. Ruin has a standard tactic, fight head-on. He does not consider other options for the country. The match begins. Malchieri is very serious. He is going to pay Ruin back for what happened earlier, so he immediately summons a combat protector. To dodge the giant air knight, Ruin uses time refraction. He catches up with Seth from behind, but the brute manages to notice him and tries to strike him with his fist. Ruin stops his hand halfway. Seth asks what Ardal is going to do with him, but Ruin thinks that now is not the time for conversation, at which point the combat protector attacks both boys. Malchieri tries to break free from Ruin's grip, but he fails. Now he understands that that power was not accidental. He is preparing to lose to the sword of his own magic. Seth closes his eyes and waits for the blow, but it doesn't come. He turns around and sees Ruin calmly killing the defender. Malchieri is in shock. He cannot believe that his steel protector Ruin kills with his bare hands. Seth asks why Ruin saved him. He calls him stupid. He's just going to finish off Malchieri himself. He reminds Seth of their agreement and raises his hand, preparing to flick him, cold sweat running down the thug's face. From this blow, Malchieri flies tens of meters away, managing to see the blue sky in flight. The Altena Stadium was instantly filled with applause. Everyone was delighted with this match and thought that the battle was one-sided. Ruin attracts attention with his ambiguous and unknown magic, as well as incredible power, not only from the spectators at the stadium, but also from another person. Theron, who is at the demigod stage, is the only 8th-class mage known as the King of the Border, but even he has never heard of such magic before. He asks Tryon Ignite to tell him everything he knows about this guy, his student. The professor says that Ruin is a model student who was expected to give up, but fought to the end. He is the one who turned his weakness into strength. That's all Ignite knows, but Theron believes the Archmage is trying to shield his student from his curiosity. The Dirty Mage is going to invite Ardal to his place and find out everything, but Tryon reminds him that mages have the right to keep their techniques secret. Theron believes that he and no one else should be at the pinnacle of magic, so he will do everything to learn about this magic he has seen for the first time. All the students are in some pub. Ruin says that they only won one competition and didn't even prepare for the rest. In such a situation, fooling around is somehow not very good. But his teammates think that they should just enjoy the evening, especially since students from other schools are here too. Jason runs up to his sad friend, cheers him up and suggests that they all celebrate their first victory together. He points out that drinks, local coconut vanilla juice, and a dragon's kiss are already waiting for them on the table. The last name catches Ardal's attention. Jason says that he has, for a moment, a huge sense of patriotism. This is a special drink from his territory. But, of course, it's not just about love for one's native land. One sip of Ruin will make one feel like he shared a kiss with a dragon. Jason rushes to pour his friend some and demands that he stop stifling and try it. Just one glass and the guy will have a dark past. Here, Ardell notices that there is someone standing behind him. It turns out to be a representative of the Ona Institute. Jason lashes out at Malchieri, explaining that while losing to Ruin may have hurt his pride, they're just starting to have fun now, so Seth should leave them alone. Malchieri says he came to apologize. Everyone listens attentively. The boy regrets looking down on them. After he lost to Ruin at the stadium, Seth finally realized that he shouldn't consider others below him just because they are weaker. There are many in this world who are stronger than Malchieri, so for someone he is also a weakling. At the moment of defeat, Seth felt that his past actions were fundamentally wrong. Jason believes that people don't change that quickly. Malchieri understands this. He says he just wanted to apologize. Everyone becomes very awkward. Seth is about to leave, but Ruin stops him and asks if the apology was sincere, or if it was because of their bet. Malchieri replies that he does, and Ardell begins to smile and extends his hand to Seth, thanking him for having the courage to ask for forgiveness. The boys also accepted Seth's apology, and at some point they all started celebrating together, hanging their arms over each other's shoulders, drinking Dragon's Kiss, and immersing themselves in the intoxicating atmosphere. The next morning, Ardell wakes up in his bed with a terrible headache, with 3 of his team members sitting next to him. Since the guy doesn't remember anything, the guys tell him how yesterday he almost cried his eyes out, while thanking everyone for at least believing in him now. The guys laugh, not believing that the seemingly perfect Ruin has such a side. The guy is upset, he just woke up, and they immediately laughed at him. He decides to avoid the drink, which makes him overly emotional, at all costs in the future. Here, Ruin hears Seth calling him. Ardell remembers the previous night and, burning with shame, tries to leave as quickly as possible. The boy runs into Professor Heidel, who says that Ruin is always haunted by all sorts of problems. Ardell is afraid that his teacher knows about his dark past yesterday. Heidel says that he has another matter. A man wants to see the guy. Ignat says that this man is very dangerous and hides under the mask of deceit. Both understand who they are talking about, so the professor asks the guy to be careful. The Dirty King is full of secrets. Ruin promises the professor to be ready. The meeting will take place after today's competition. Ardell tells his guys what happened. They are delighted. Now they have another reason to win, so they need to discuss the plan. Ruin explains the principle. Everyone should protect him if they can while he runs straight to the gate. Arrow ball is a game in which the ball is a living arrow that constantly flies around the field. 9 participants are divided into teams of attackers, defenders, and a goalkeeper. The team that sends more arrows into the opponent's goal wins. Despite the simple rules, the game requires the development of complex strategies and tactics. You need to understand when to use defensive spells, when to use crowd control magic, how to grab an arrow and direct it into the gate, and so on. The game has started. Ruin flies into a rapid attack. They try to block him with ice magic, but the guy easily breaks through the defense. Seth is rooting for Ardell. His teammates think he's completely crazy because just yesterday he was almost hysterical because of the loss. Malchieri turns to the boys and tells them that real men become friends after exchanging blows. However, someone notes that there can be no talk of an exchange, since only one side was beating. Seth decides to ignore these words. He is busy with his thoughts. After the match with Ruin, he is convinced that this guy is a next-generation mage. Aaron Prius, Dalian Malkin, and Doom Prime are all powerful, and Malchieri knows this because he personally competed with them during the Magic Festival. But Ardell is stronger than any of them. It's not just his strength. Ruin also has leadership skills and is capable of being used. Seth never thought that he would accept him as his friend. His thoughts are interrupted by a guy from the team who says that it's time for them to discuss strategy, since they are next to perform. Meanwhile, Ruin cannot be stopped. He moves towards the opponent's goal, overcoming all their defenses. But no one noticed that the arrow was already in Jason's hands, who launched it into the goal and earned a point. Even after this, the opposing team focused their efforts on Ruin, with other team members successfully taking advantage of the opening. When the enemy's attention waned and they were unable to stop their team, their defensive formation would immediately collapse. The opponents surrender. They cannot resist these monsters. The winner of the match becomes the Magic Academy Ignite. In Arrowball, the score is usually expected to be 3 to 4 points, but the Academy won by a staggering 11 points. Disappointed opponents understand that this bastard was not joking. He really can win. The Academy, meanwhile, rejoices in a new victory. Professor Heidel quietly takes Ruin away for a talk, where she tells him that the meeting time is set for 7 o'clock, and also asks the guy not to eat anything in front of her. At the appointed time, Ardell walks down the corridor where he meets Professor Ignat, who offers to follow him further, and they enter the portal. The formidable King Theron, standing on the border between man and demigod, sits on the throne. Even Strawn is delighted with the energy of this monster. All three sit down at a beautiful table. Theron tells Ruin that he has known about him for a long time. He once had a chance to watch the guy. Ardell is surprised. The Dirty King explains that just 5 years ago, he chose 11 children, and then Ruin was one of the candidates. Theron decides to get straight to the point. He asks the guy to tell him what has been happening to him all this time. Ruin realizes that his current self is a thorn in his side, living proof that the border mage was not perceptive enough. The Dirty King wants to hear from him that in fact he was not mistaken. Then, he decides to say only one fact about himself. He reports that even if words about talent may be an exaggeration, they cannot negate his efforts. Theron heard again about the efforts, like teacher, like student. He asks how it happened that the two decided to speak in the same vein. Ignat replies that this is why he likes Ruin so much. The king asks what efforts Ardell has made, and he replies that he has recently become interested in the art of the body. Theron does not believe that Ruin studied the body arts to overcome his disorder, which allowed him to become as strong as an ogre and be able to cast spells without releasing mana. He suggests that the cause is most likely some artifact with a similar effect that he has never heard of. Ignite asks permission to interrupt Theron at this point. He agrees, because there are still many competitions ahead, and he will be watching Ruin. He is very curious to see if Ardell's efforts will help him stand up to the children he himself has chosen. Ruin is pleased with these words, and the fact that Theron will be watching him. The guy is also very interested in whether he will be able to defeat the Chosen Ones. The next day, Ignat meets with Theron and thanks him for his polite behavior. The Dirty King says that it is not necessary to think too badly of him, especially since he is always glad to have talented magicians. Tryon asks if Theron has satisfied his curiosity. The king replies that no, because he was never told what they were hiding. However, this was now relegated to the background because this impudent scoundrel decided to warn him and was not at all afraid. Most of the others would have crawled at his feet. Doom Prime enters the arena. The team supports him, but he doesn't need these meaningless words. Suddenly, one guy runs up to him. He tells that Ardell, a representative of that very academy, visited the magic tower. Prime is furious that the king met with someone other than him. Prime saw some matches with his participation. This Ruin turned everyone upside down. They say that it is difficult to resist him because of his unique magic. But Doom paid no attention to him because despite all his hardships and battles, he did not see him as a rival. The guy thinks that Ardell can only arouse curiosity due to his unusual approach to witchcraft. But then he is overcome with rage. His teammates notice that something is wrong. But Doom no longer hears or sees anyone. He cannot forgive Ruin, because only he himself is worthy of the recognition of the King of Magicians.